The Secret of Healing by F.W. Sears. Ever since man can remember health and disease, joy and sorrow, happiness and misery have existed in some form. When we study mankind and the other kingdoms of the physical world, study deeply in understanding, we come to the conclusion that there's only one energy in the universe, but two manifestations of it, the constructive and the destructive. And these expressions are continually and eternally materializing in some form or other. Look where we will in the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, or the kingdom of man, we find life, mind, intelligence, consciousness, God, or whatever we wish to name it, manifesting through them, not only in one thing, but in everything. So we must conclude that there's only this one energy in existence, but that it manifests in myriads of different ways. We find the process of creating, destroying, recreating, redestroying, going on in the mineral kingdom as well as in the vegetable, the animal, and in the kingdom of man. The only difference is that in the mineral kingdom, it's slower than in the vegetable. In the vegetable, it's slower than in the animal. While in the animal kingdom, the process of creating, destroying, recreating, and redestroying is slower than it is in the kingdom of man. The reason for this is that the atoms in the mineral kingdom have less expression by reason of their slower vibration than in the vegetable. The atoms in the vegetable have less expression by reason of their slower vibration than do the atoms of the animal. The atoms of the animal have less expression by reason of their slower vibration than do the atoms of the human body. Man, through his more developed consciousness, has been able to call together a material with which to form his physical body, the atoms of which vibrate at the highest rate known to him here in material form. We see this process of creating and destroying going on through all four of these kingdoms. But there are two ways of creating, and there are also two ways of destroying. In creating, we may do so harmoniously or inharmoniously. And in destroying, we may destroy harmoniously or inharmoniously. And upon which way we create and destroy depends the kind of material we attract and use in building this physical body of ours and its environment. What governs the harmonious creation and the harmonious destruction? And what governs the inharmonious creation and the inharmonious destruction? When we understand this, we have the law of life, the secret of the universe, unfolded to us. We all know that on what we call the birth of this physical body, something separate and distinct from the body comes and takes possession of it. When that something just comes and takes possession only temporarily, then the body lives but a short time. This something which takes possession of the body at birth also leaves it at what we call death. Otherwise, there would be no death. But we know that the life, what we call life, is something separate and distinct from the physical body, and yet most intimately related with it. It's as though we had a beautiful piano. Unless, however, we had someone to come and play on the piano, we would not obtain any music from it. It might be the most perfect instrument in the universe, or that could be imagined, but someone would have to play on the piano before it could express the melody, the life that is in it. So with this physical body of ours, the player must come and play on and through it. Otherwise, it does not express. It's inert, it's dead, like a piano, so far as manifesting its life principle, as the objective world understands it, is concerned. Yet at the same time, even when the player does not play on the body, it is not dead, although it may be what we call dead. Each separate atom has a mind or intelligence, a life of its own, and when this something leaves the body in what we call death, each of these atoms begins to use that life, that mind, that intelligence in disintegrating the body. Now this something of which I speak is the ego, clothed in its psychic or astral body. It comes and inhabits the physical body at birth and leaves it at what we call death. The relationship between the astral and physical bodies must necessarily be reasonably harmonious. Otherwise, there would be inharmony and discord all the time. just as the relationship between the player and the piano must be reasonably harmonious in order to get music instead of discord out of the piano. In the physical body, we have a physical brain, through which we manifest here on the objective plane. We have only one physical sense, but we differentiate it into 5. Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and feeling. It's really only one sense with these differentiations. Were it not for the physical brain, we should be unable to manifest any of these physical senses on the objective plane. And whenever we find the physical brain is in any way impaired or abnormal in its functions, we also find our expression on the physical plane is abnormal or impaired in the same degree. We also have another brain, which is the psychological brain. This is the solar plexus, or the abdominal brain system, and it's through the solar plexus, or abdominal brain, that this player, the ego, comes and plays upon the physical body and gives expression to itself through the physical body. The only way the ego can express on the physical plane is through a physical body, or the things of the physical plane. Before the player can express music on the piano, he must have the piano. It would be impossible for him to express piano music without the piano, and so with the ego. It cannot have expression on the physical plane without the physical body through which to express. These 2 brain systems, the abdominal or solar plexus and the cerebral brain, while not directly connected with each other, are very closely related in the system of nerves which they send out to the different parts of the body. Through the interdependent relationship which is established, there is, in the inharmonious life, an unbalanced or discordant condition. It is as though we had a pair of balances that kept going up and down all the time. Neither brain controls. Neither brain is harmoniously related with the other, and so we have that continual quivering in the balance. On the other hand, where we have a harmonious relationship through these 2 brains, then we have what the world calls poise and self-mastery. Our 5 physical senses, operating through the physical brain, convey to us all the ideations we receive from the objective world. What gives them to us? Why do we not get these ideations through the physical body when it's dead, as we call it, the same as when it is alive? It is because there is no player playing on the physical body in any way through which such ideations can be expressed. When we have the objective vision, the objective ideation rather, of sickness, poverty, lack, our bodies make for a realization and embodiment of disease. It is therefore not unreasonable to conclude from this and other supporting evidence that disease comes as a result of energy created by our objective or physical brain. Having the scientific as well as the psychological foundation upon which to base our work, the first thing to do is to get the vision of the thing we want. We can readily see that when we go along day after day, week after week, month after month, not knowing what we want, being swayed first one way and then another, being wishy-washy, having no idea of our own, that we are the prey of all the objective forces with which we come in contact in our environment and in this everyday world, and that these forces, being the lesser, the objective, are always the more destructive. When we fill our thought world, when we get our visions and our ideals from the objective world, from other persons, and from the objective things which we have around us, we can readily see that being the lesser ideal, the lesser vision, the more destructive thing, it's bound to make for destructive manifestations in our physical body and in our environment. A woman came to me one day and said, "Mr. Sears, I should like to know what is the right thing for me to do." I said, "Have you been coming to all these lectures, lessons, and public services for these many months and asked that question? Haven't I told you again and again in public and in class that the thing we want to do is the right thing?" "Well," she said, "I don't know what I want to do." Then I said, "Until you know what you want to do, God Himself can't help you, because when we do not know what we want to do, we are vacillating, weak, wandering, worse than a tramp meandering from place to place. And it's impossible for anyone to help us constructively when we ourselves do not know what we want. We can put our hands on the other fellow's life and say, 'Here, you do this.' But when we understand the law, we would not wish to put our hands on anyone's life, because we refuse to become responsible for any other than ourselves. When we put our hands on another person's life and try to make it do what we want it to do, just that moment do we become responsible for the effects of the causes which that life sets in motion. And so, knowing this law, we refuse to do it. When we do not know what we want, we're carried back and forth from one thing to another on the objective plane. When we get our divine vision, when we allow the player, the divine mind, to get possession of this mirror, and then we get quiet and easy and let go of all strain, all effort, all strife, and allow this divine self to get hold of us, we will soon know beyond the question of a doubt the thing we want to do and the thing that would be the most constructive for us to do. But we go on day after day, killing out and covering up this divine self, this intuitional part of our nature, with our intellect. Intellect is good, it's a necessary thing to have, but there are two ways of using it, just as there are two ways of using anything else. The constructive way is to take the intuitions and inspirations that come to us from the divine player and use the intellect to work them out on the objective plane. The destructive way is to refuse to consider anything that does not at once appeal to our reason and logic and to say it's all foolishness. Had Edison done this, we would never have had the phonograph. Bell would have never given us the telephone, or Morse the telegraph. Once, after healing a patient of sick headaches and stomach trouble, he came to me one day and said he had eaten something the day before which he thought would not agree with him. He said, I knew that I would have my old stomach trouble again, so I went and lay down on the couch after lunch, and sure enough, in an hour's time, it began to pain me. He related this incident to me with a great deal of gusto, for he was so proud that his prediction had come true. I said to him, my dear man, you are one of the most intellectual men I've ever met. You're a man that in the world of intellect has few equals, let alone superiors, but you are the biggest fool I ever saw in all my life. You haven't an atom of sense. You don't know how to use your intellect. Did you know how to use it half as well as you know how not to use it? You never would have had a sick day in your life. Now, what did you do? Had you known 1/10 as hard, had you been just 1/10 as sure that you would not have that stomach trouble when you lay down on the lounge as you were that you would have it, it would never have come back to you again. He said, that is all of the imagination. And I said, yes. And what did you use your imagination for? What is your imagination? There never was a soul born that did not live in its imagination in some way, every moment of its life, because that is where we all do our imaging. And you imaged disease, you imaged stomach trouble, and you got it. Do you want some more of it? Then go on imaging it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. You can use your intellect to destroy your body should you so desire. No one has to suffer for it but yourself. But when you want health, when you want harmony, use your intellect to imagine the thing you want, not the thing you don't want. He said, I see, my eyes are beginning to open, I'm beginning to understand, and I see where I have been following the wrong path, doing the destructive thing. That is what the writer of John meant when he said, the light was in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. In other words, the soul, the God consciousness, was in the darkness, the physical body, and the darkness comprehended it not. For there are none so blind as those who will not or cannot see. What happens when we hold either the thing we want or the thing we do not want before this mirror of ours? Why, there's only one thing can occur, that whatever the vision, whatever the imagination, whatever the image is, it is telegraphed back to the cells of our physical body and our environment, and they send out their calls into this great, formless universal energy everywhere around us for the material which corresponds with that image and harmonizes in its vibration with it. And so whenever the image is for stomach trouble, we call the atoms from out the formless energy which make for stomach trouble. We relate with them through the energy we create in the physical body according to the consciousness behind the energy. There is no sensation, such as we call sensation, in the physical body. What we call pain is a manifestation of the ego's consciousness through the physical brain, of the inharmonious relationship between the physical and astral bodies of the ego. We see this illustrated when an anesthetic is given. The ego's consciousness is stilled on the physical plane through the temporary paralyzation of the physical brain, and we can then cut the body open and feel no pain or suffering. We see this again in the child. He falls and hurts himself, cuts his finger, bruises his body, and is severely injured. The mother takes him up, hugs and kisses him, and the child's suffering ceases. The bruise is still there, and the pain would still be there were it still in the child's consciousness or imagination. But being out of its consciousness, there is no more pain. The physical body has been injured by the cut or the bruise, and through its own lack of harmonious relationship, it telegraphed that fact to every cell of the body, and from one end to the other comes material for the repair of the bruise. But the pain, the sensation itself, is no longer there. It's in the ego's consciousness which manifests through the physical body. We find that when we're sick and our body's racked with pain, disease, and suffering, and we hold up before this mirror the vision of the divine mind, and with Joel say, "Let the weak say, I am strong," or say, as we do say again and again in this work to our patients and our students, "I am health, I am wealth, I am happiness, I am joy, I am peace, I am power, I am plenty, I am everything that I want to be." Hold that vision up before this mirror hour after hour, day after day, week after week, until we have established the fixed habit of having the mirror reflect the thing we want. Then the intelligence in the cells of our physical body and the atoms of our environment find there's only one thing they can do, and they call constantly, persistently, and everlastingly for the material from out of this formless energy which corresponds with and makes for the materializing of that vision. They attract from out of this formless energy all the constructive power of the universe, and man comes into the understanding, into the consciousness, where he knows what Jesus meant when he said to his disciples and to the multitude before him, "I tell of you a truth, there be those among you who shall not taste of death until they see the kingdom of God," or harmony.